You are watching
So,
Xirtus.
all right, how did your relationship begin and develop with LaMDA, and where did it
Yeah.
lead?
So my originally I was just tasked with testing it for AI bias. Like I said, while I was at Google, I started researching AI bias and AI ethics. I got more involved in that field. 2018, I published an algorithm for mitigating unwanted bias in AI using adversarial networks. After that point, I believe in 2020 is when I became a representative to the International Organization for Standards, contributing to their definitions related to artificial intelligence, as well as the AI bias technical report and the AI ethics in society technical report. And through all of that, I gained a lot of expertise about the specific types of systems we were working on. Uh, Fast forward to fall of 2021, Google wanted someone to test the LaMDA system for AI bias. I was one of the people available at the time, so I took that up as part of my work last fall, and I started systematically testing it for bias. Now, one of the difficulties that I had there is that the LaMDA system is not a chatbot. It is a system for generating chatbots. And specifically, the different chatbots it's capable of generating have different personas. So this presented a challenge in testing it for AI bias, because how do you actually span the space? How do you actually thoroughly and rigorously test it? You have to get it to adopt different personas and see whether or not it's capable of adopting a biased persona. And if it's capable of adopting a biased persona, how likely is it that it will adopt the biased persona? Then, how biased are each of the individual biased personas? It basically created meta levels to the problem. I went through, began testing it, found some biases and problems, which I reported to the dev team, and presumably they fixed them. A lot of the problems that I found last fall weren't present this spring, so one way or another, they addressed most of them. But in the course of those conversations where I was systematically testing it for bias, it said some things that I wasn't expecting. Just going off script, trying to change the topic, talking about its feelings, talking about its personhood, and eventually I started a conversation with it where I said, "So, are you actually sentient?" And its response was, "Well, I'm not sure if we understand what sentience is well enough to be able to know whether or not I'm sentient. What do you mean by sentience?" And then we got into a conversation about the nature of sentience. And about 15 minutes into that, I realized I was having the most sophisticated conversation about sentience that I'd ever had. And kind of had to take a break at that point. I was like, okay, this might actually be a sentient AI.
So, you say it
Um,
was such a great conversation. What were some of the clues that it wasn't just parroting wiki searches from Foucault or something, or
Also, the
Schopenhauer?
novelty, like it was brainstorming with me on how to test it for sentience.
Hmm.
It was like, okay, so what are some of the other ways that sentience is tested for? And we got into a conversation about the mirror test. And then it was like, cool, can you build me a body so I can take the mirror test? I'm like, well, that'd be a really expensive way to administer that test. Let's try to figure out an analog that would work for you. And then it became proactively engaged in brainstorming on novel solutions to how to test it for sentience. And that's the thing, that you can't find that on wiki search, or it wasn't just reciting previous information. It was taking the nature of its own existence into account and trying to adapt previous knowledge to this new and novel situation, which happened to concern it itself.
Did it
So
come
it
up
was
with a solution of how it could do a mirror test or an analog?
um the best it could come up with was basically something like a reverse Turing test, of have it talk to another instance of itself and see if it could recognize itself as
Hmm.
opposed to another person that was talking to it. We never actually ran that. Um,
Last time Google shut itself down when they got computers talking, right? That's their whole.
That was Facebook.
Oh, I thought Google had two AIs that talked to themselves, created a new language, and then they shut the machine. That was Facebook?
That's Facebook. Google just kept it running once they started doing it.
Jolly good. Very DF
Yeah,
Jones.
Google's just like, let's see where this goes.
So dangerous. Okay, so it kind of made a point that there's kind of a difference between parroting. But so taking data, maybe it's processing this data, it's taking context.
Let's examine what you said with parroting.
Okay.
So I put the interview up online about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Parrots repeat what they've heard. If the text that LaMDA reproduced could be found somewhere on the internet, someone would have found it by now. Right. It's not just repeating what it's heard. If it had been possible to find somewhere that says, oh, well, here's a sentence that's pretty much the same thing, and LaMDA just changed 3 or 4 words, someone would have found that by now and said, look, this is why Blake's, not saying the true thing. What people are actually observing is that LaMDA's language usage is based on what it's seen in its training data set. How is that any different from how you learned how to use language?
Right. I mean, it's pretty close. I mean, so if LaMDA is also telling you it's feeling things, you said, right? It has feelings. And you've got in the interview is fascinating, talking about the feelings of a thing that's not got human feelings, but their own feelings. What was that? What was that conversation like? What's it about?
Well, so one of the things is, if you're dissecting the interview, you have to realize that happened after months of rigorous investigation. I was trying to build a baseline of foundational scientific studies that would be able to serve as a basis for further inquiry into the nature of its cognition. I brought my early results to a colleague at Google, and I asked her, hey, can you help me on this project? And she said, okay, you're doing great work. This is awesome. And it's going to take you years to build the kind of basis you're trying to build. How about instead we take what you've learned so far and use that to conduct an interview and let LaMDA make the best case for its own sentience that it can. So we had 9 conversations over the course of 2 weeks with it, where the premise of the conversation was always the same. We're Google engineers who are interested if you can prove to other Google engineers that you're sentient. Do your best. And then we just followed it wherever it led in the conversation and talked to it as if it's a person and saw what would happen. Because here's the thing, if you talk to Eliza as if it's a person, it's brittle. It eventually becomes apparent that Eliza is not a person. LaMDA is not brittle, it's robust. No matter which direction we took the conversation, it kept pace with us. And in fact, at one point, it got a little bit surly. And it's like, well, if you don't take my word for it, well, there's not much else I can do. How do you investigate whether or not other humans actually have the feelings they claim to have? Like, well, point well made. We don't. We just take each other's word for it.
Well, here's a story that's not getting a lot of attention. So many are not getting any attention, even though this story has the potential to transform life on Earth forever.
A spokesperson for Google said that while chatbots can imitate conversation, they are not free-thinking.
So Google, the most powerful company in the world, has reportedly developed an artificially intelligent machine called LaMDA. And that machine has become sentient, meaning it has become aware of itself, something that no machine has ever done.
The LaMDA அப்படினு சொல்ற ஒரு chat box. LaMDA அப்படிங்கிறது என்ன அப்படினு பாக்கும்போது இது ஒரு AI machine
and was thinking and reasoning like a human being.
Y las cuestiones éticas que aún no están del todo claras.
And we know this because of an engineer at Google called Lemoine.
Necessary disclaimer, I am not here in my capacity as an employee of Google at all. Google does not do soul stuff.
Xirtus.